Guest for the morning, Eric Chum is a vice chairperson of the NPP in the Trobo constituency, and Trobo is in the Greater Accra region. And also with me in the studio is the Member of Parliament for North Dine, a member of the NDC and also a legal practitioner, Judge Law. Okay, and you also need Eric Chum is also a businessman. Since I'm mentioning their professions and what they also need to do. All right, so we start the discussions. And gentlemen, how are you?
Good. Very good.
Another
day by grace.
Amen. Amen. George, you look very calm this morning.
I've always been calm.
You're like Man Diesel. I always say you heat up very soon. Anyway, both of you are really. The Ghanaian Times has on the front page $498 million coming in as Ghana signs compact, and that story on page 4 of the paper just basically talks about now we have formally initialed the MCA compact, and there's a second one we're taking, but just there's been concerns raised about whether it's a conditionality or not, whether we're going to have the management of ECG, according to what the media reports say, to be outsourced. And those are concerns being raised because it is an essential service being provided to the population of Ghana, of course with the exception of Northern Ghana. And does it have any ramifications at all? I have to start with the other compacts in itself. We're told that this mainly is focusing on energy.
Yeah, let me just say that good morning to our cherished viewers across the country, and good morning to my constituents in the North Dine constituency. I think it's good news that the second part or the second tranche of the compact has been signed. The first one, you remember, was signed under President John Ajimi Kufuor, and that came with some very important interventions. Some roads in farm centers were, the pack houses were built. Major roads like the N. So it brought Ghana some good dividends. I believe that this one also will be very crucial because it goes to the heart of our developmental agenda, energy. And I am very happy that His Excellency the President, in his wisdom, decided that that whole chunk is energy centered, because we need the energy stock to be able to drive this economy in the right direction, and so therefore I think that the interventions that is going to bring, already we are talking about 1,000 kilowatts of electricity being done by General Electric. That agreement was signed on the sidelines in the US while the president was there, and then we are going to pay some attention to our distribution and our production of energy, and I think that it's good. As for conditionalities, if there were no conditionalities in the first one, I don't see why anybody should expect that there should be conditionalities in the second one. This is money that is being given to Ghana to pump into the energy sector. Yes, the Millennium Challenge accounts, people have limits and timelines and things like that within which we must work, but they don't tell us exactly how we do these things. People are talking about restructuring of ECG and things like that. Restructuring comes in various forms. The Minister of Energy had issued a statement saying that what the media put out is not true. So I don't think that there's cause for alarm. But most of us are anything that will make the electricity company of Ghana more efficient and the delivery more permanent is what we are calling for. That is what industry needs to drive this nation forward. That's what we all need, even the small.
Okay, you're a member of Parliament. Were you in the House before you rose? There was an MOU that was also approved.
Yes. Right.
Okay, and what do you make of it?
Well, to start with, I would say good morning to the viewers,
and then also,
and of course, to the bigger family, the NPP, and then to my constituency people. I think that is a great thing. We also have to commend former President Kufuor for actually initiating this particular process. Like George said, we've all seen the benefit and the value that the first compact has brought. And it's imperative that this one, especially the fact that it's focusing on energy, would also bring in the needed boost that we actually expect in our energy sector. As you know, we've had challenges in the last few years, and I think that the impact has actually been felt more by industry, whereby if you go to our mining industry, for instance, you go into the iron or smelting industries like Valco and other.
Now we're having the steel.
Yes, exactly. The steel.
Some of them even closing down.
Yeah, threatening to close down all that.
Some of them have closed down actually, apart from those.
And recently in Tema, for instance, where the ICU issued a statement that I think 20 or so of these other companies are threatening to shut down because of the energy. So it's extremely important. And if you look at the fact that we are growing in terms of the need for energy, and consistently we've not been able to make up the deficit in terms of the energy that we need. It's extremely key that we take advantage of it. Now, I'll talk about the conditionalities. I think it depends, it's all about semantics. Now, we have all appreciated the way ECG has run in the past and then even presently, whereby this is an organization that should have the capacity to generate its own funds, really. But then it has been a systemic failure in the way management has gone about it. So if you look at the basically collecting of revenue, for instance, it's woefully inadequate. People are tapping the electricity without paying, right? There are, systems in place which are not working properly, for instance. So even though we're having issues with the energy, I think that some of the problems actually coming from the way ECG itself has been managed. Now, is it a good idea that we are outsourcing? From my management perspective, probably yes. But then we need to understand exactly what the modalities are and what is going to go into this particular new arrangements. You understand? Because if it's going to sort of increase the burden on the already stressed Ghanaian worker and an ordinary man on the streets, because does it mean that it's
But do you agree, all in all, it's just for efficiency?
No, what I'm saying is
the whole objective is to ensure that there's efficiency within the
system. I appreciate that. I'm wearing two hats here. Now, what is that going to bring? Does it mean that, of course, it's going to be efficient, but does it mean that it's going to basically even increase the cost of energy, for instance, for the average Ghanaian?
Okay, I get your point. In itself, no matter how we want to describe it, well, some critics will go out and say it's outsourcing, but whatever. We've had some experience with Aqua Vitans Rand. I wouldn't say that it's the same arrangement because I don't know. Now, do we think that management of ECG has become so critical that the deficiencies that we find thereof, as far as the system is concerned, needs to be fixed? And so if a country is bringing money, they need to make sure that they track how the money is used adequately, just like we've seen in the first compact.
Well, let me first of all say that I think that we are talking out of context. I think that I made the
premature.
I think that I made the point that the minister had come out to say that
he came to deny.
Yeah, yes, and so.
But following that, there's been a counter denial even by members of parliament, perhaps only in the opposition, who have categorically also stated, Mr. George Lowe, that these are all just semantics.
Listen, the person in charge of that ministry, under who the ECG works to,
they can't go wrong,
has come to deny.
We've had
please, when you get there, if it so turns out that he lied, when he gets there, then we can now raise the issues. But as we sit here, where I want, please, you see, I cannot come and sit here when a minister of energy, who works to the president, who ECG works to, says that no, what the media has put out is wrong. I'm saying in simple terms that I can't see why how I can sit here and say the minister was wrong. You may have your opinion about how these things seem to be going, but I cannot categorically agree on this program that we are going to outsource ECG. That, to the best of my knowledge, has been denied by government.
No, but
that decision can only be made by government. So if the government has come through its minister to deny, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. There's no reason why. But I would say that.
But we don't have to wait. Going by the precedent that happens in the government.
Roland, please. Roland,
We don't
you
have
see,
to wait,
Roland,
George.
please. You've given this country to some people to run. At any point in time, you give them the benefit of the doubt until they prove you wrong. But I'm saying that anything that will make ECG more efficient, we are all for it.
But
Okay.
how that will
it
be
is
done, you don't want us to discuss
No,
it.
no, I don't think that we know how it's going to be.
Yeah, we don't know, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but
if you are suggesting,
No, but
if,
what-
if it's a suggestion,
No,
if it's only a suggestion,
Honorable, but we
that
don't
the best
know.
way to do it is to outsource
Honorable, we
I would
don't
say
know,
that,
but-
well, you may have a point.
No, but
Honorable, we don't know. But what's in black and white has been approved.
I am saying that. Have you read the MCA? Have you read the
No,
contract? that was signed?
I have read some
And
content.
it says that ECG will be
No,
outsourced.
not
No,
categorically.
Yes,
like
so
what
I'm
it
saying that-
says, what it says in
You
there
see-
is
you see-
that what it says in there is
Yeah.
that the management of our energy sector
Yeah.
has to be looked at.
Yes.
Yes. And then, if I recollect, the minister himself, in answering this particular issue about the fact that if ECG was going to be outsourced or not, stated categorically that there are certain aspects of the ECG business which would be necessary to us, even in terms of revenue collection, for instance, in terms of going out there to look at maintenance of their facilities, for instance.
and stuff like
If private sector can come in to do it more efficiently, they will look at it. You understand? So I don't understand why
you
we are
see,
sort of
the
running
point-
away.
the point is,
We're
you
running
see-
away. It's not the entire organization at
making- you are making
ECG
a
being
point.
outsourced.
You are now making
but
the point.
management, if you say management, it's totally different from the core business that
I don't mind
ECG
No, no, no,
does.
no, it's not about
You
no
understand
management.
what
I'm saying
so,
that-
George, I mean, I'm not sure why you're so
No, no,
you're a
I'm
bit
saying
prickly
that you
about
see,
the fact that
when you are talking to the public,
yes.
we have to be careful the
information that we send out.
Because did you see the reaction of some people when this blanket statement
Was-
was
Well, it was reported in the media just after a weekend.
Yes,
Yeah, I think the last week.
Yeah, so
before
you
now.
see, we
Yes.
need to put out the right
2 weeks
information. So I'm
ago.
happy that we are now talking about the real issues there.
All right.
That if
This
some
one
services-
is coming
yeah.
from Samuel Nyama, who is a reporter of the Ghanaian Times, and he's not based there. He went with the president to Washington D.C.
Yeah.
and this is what he writes.
Yes.
So perhaps maybe I'm wrong. The second compass goal is poverty reduction to private sector-led economic growth. Then when it comes to the Compact at 6 project, ECG financial and operational turnaround. Nothing Electricity Company financial and operational turnaround, access to electricity regulatory strengthening and capacity building. Now, going by what the compact comes with, the first one we had a Millennium Development Authority. So I don't know whether it is going to be in the same
I'm
mode.
sure.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
the same one.
And we had, they outsourced, people, they advertised, people came to do biddings, and then, well, it depends on what you're doing. You go to that very sector, the allocation is given to you, you undertake the project. It's supervised by MIDA.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That's exactly
Now,
what I was gonna
we had the main one, well, that one was undertaken by a main contractor, not necessarily a US one. I think it was by a Brazilian or something of the sort. All right? So it's understood. Going by it means that we're not going to have local expertise going to, well, whether it's even local expertise, it's still going to be private.
I can assure you that some of the roads that were done under MIDA in my area.
I know. I am
were
not
done by
disputing
Ghanaian
that. I
contractors
am not
already.
saying
Yes.
that. I'm still saying it's private. It's not going to be those who already. It's not going to be those who already are in there.
Oh, no. If you want a financial turnaround from ECG, for instance,
Yes.
you may have to hire consultants to come in and look at their financial operations and see how.
That's
best
how
they
you
can-
look at it.
Yeah, that's how
But
it's
George,
going to be
I
done.
think we are saying basically the same thing.
No, he's in a state of denial.
I'm not denying. All I'm saying
you're
is that-
denying, Mr.
No,
George.
no, I'm not denying. You have said that
Mr. George,
people
you're
from
right.
outside come in, and I'm saying to you that yes, you may have to hire consultants,
Right.
for instance. And those consultants are not ECG workers.
No, definitely.
Yes, other services that you will need, like he says, you may have to hire engineers who are from private sector, who possibly can provide a more efficient means of doing things. If the ECG workforce were doing it as efficiently as they should, why would anybody be injecting money in there? It means that they are doing something that is not right, and that we need our outside assistance to do it. So, like you are saying, we are talking from the same page. I am just being careful that the information we are putting out does not confuse
He's uncomfortable with the idea that ECG is being absorbed.
No.
But we are talking about the fact that
Right.
the management.
I'm not saying
so
that,
that they can stick
I'm
to
comfortable with the ECG, but I'm saying that ECG.
Let's veer into the argument of what we need to do to make sure that we have a viable and efficient management of ECG. What needs to be done?
Well, I think that's all been spelled out already. Financial, managerial, possibly technical support. Because, for instance, in terms of losses, we are still above the best practice average. And therefore, anybody who, or any expertise that we need to ensure that we stay within, it's important. So it's one area that, you will like. And we are talking about collection of bills. It's been something that's eluded the ECG for a long time. There are lots of monies out there with customers that have not been collected, possibly because the systems they are operating is not efficient. So we may need somebody to come in there, some group to come in there to restructure it and find out how we can do it more efficient. There are many of these things that needs to be done. But the core operation of distribution of electricity, I believe, would be done by the ECGs. But like he says, I mean, yes, we may have to privatize or outsource, as well, some of the surrounding services outside what these days we've all begin to term the non-core services of the corporation. So basically, I think that for me, I still maintain the fact that anything that will make the ECG more efficient, I am for it. I'm happier to see a more efficient ECG, knowing very well that when you wake up in the morning, 24/7, industries are operating, you have electricity, small scale, the hairdressing salons and everything are working, and people are making the daily bread.
Okay.
So for me,
why do you think that governments over the last few years have not been able to solve the subject of the management issue of ECG? It's not as if that perhaps we have a lot more inefficiency because they have a lot more resources. The argument has always been that, well, they are owed a lot even by state institutions, and also the injection of the needed capital to make sure that they have rehabilitation or replenishment of their facilities also has been a challenge for them.
I mean, I think that you took the words right out of my mouth.
Okay, I've answered the question.
Government is actually the #1 culprit when it comes to the management of ECG. Now, why do we always have a board of directors, right? We have a board of directors, we have management in place, and nobody is taking into account for some of the mishaps that happen at ECG, for instance. Now, talking about the fact that it's an indictment on the way we've run our state institutions from time immemorial, whereby people are not, accountable to the people that they are working for, right? So you have an institution like ECG, for instance, and if you look at their core mandate, they are meant to make sure that when I wake up in the morning, my lights are on, right? I can iron my clothes, get out of the office, go to the office. If I'm a business or a small scale, business, for instance, I want to make sure that I have the power to make my business run. Now, I'm not sure that ECG actually appreciates the real reason why they are there or they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Now, because if they understand and appreciate how imperative it is that they are efficient, then I'm sure that we will not be having some of the issues that we are having. Because, for instance, the ECG itself would come out and say that, oh, this is a load shedding schedule. And I can tell you for a fact, 20% would be, according to schedule. The rest, it's like a total chaos. You understand? You call them and say, oh, there's a fault there. They never even turn up, right? So some of the issues are actually self-inflicted. And it's imperative that when this compact comes in place and we restructure or look at the new ways of actually managing this particular sector, we need to sort of stick to that particular way of working and not go back to business as usual. Because once it goes back to business as usual, then in the final analysis, in as much as this is extremely key in terms of the way our energy sector is going to improve, it would come back to square one. So if there are people there, and if we have a culture in this country whereby people are not held liable for mismanagement, and there's a plethora of these examples about. And it's important that we sort of develop a certain
mentality.
Corporate, private sector mentality in the way we manage our public sector.
George, there's an issue. For example, when a government is in power, it doesn't want to be criticized for being the cause, just as a supervisor of a certain state agency. So sometimes governments are always in a state of denial that these difficulties and challenges that already are known by the public and known experts and even legislators, etc., need to be fixed. Do you think that that practice needs to change?
I don't get the question correct.
Okay. There's great deficiency as far as management of ECG and the other state institutions we have. And governments that have come, not necessarily only the NDC government, they're always in a state of denial to acknowledge that these difficulties are inherent.
I am not too sure that any governments have, and I think the records will show that, yes, governments have always been worried about the fact that our public institutions are not up to the tax. Look, I mean, we've had all sorts of, I'm sure that was the reason why Kwesi Nkrumah, for instance, public sector reforms and all that. The truth is that we have a problem with attitudes in this country. And my brother made a fantastic point where chronism and I don't know even what words to find is what is killing our public institutions.
Okay.
So in the sense that you go to some like education, no teacher gets sacked for doing anything.
So somebody needs to be held liable.
Yes, I mean, all
right, we have on the line the executive director for KITE, and KITE we know is an energy consultancy as well as an energy NGO or think tank, so to speak, and they make a lot of inputs and undertake a lot of research, not only for the states but also various agencies here in Ghana. And the executive director is on the line, Ishmael Ajekumhene. A very good morning to you, sir. Now, particularly this very news about the compact and how it is going to focus on energy, do you think that is the apt point and the apt objective for which we need to go and take a compact like this?
Well, thank you, Roland, and good morning to your listeners. I mean, we all know the kind of deficits that we have in our energy sector. I mean, obviously, any injection into the sector to help improve upon the infrastructure and also the generation capacity, I think should be welcomed. So I have very little qualms about any injection. I mean, it's estimated that we need close to like $5 billion in the energy sector, not just electricity. So this obviously will help improve the situation.
Now, the report going around, even though also has been denied categorically by the Energy Ministry, that reservedly there could be some outsourcing of management as far as we're concerned, some kind of private participation in the management of the Electricity Company of Ghana. If there's any truth to it at all, do you think it's a right decision?
Well, Roland, this wouldn't be the first time we've tried that. It didn't work. So I just hope that if we're going to do it again, then there will be some difference. We brought one of the best utilities in the world, the French distribution utility, EDF, way back in the 1990s to do this management contract. They left ECG in almost the same situation as it is before they met it. Roland, I've told you before on your show, the problems are very deep-seated. You see, the distribution network has so much challenges that if we don't fix them holistically and we try to do a piecemeal approach to the solution, nobody will be able to fix the problem. It doesn't matter where you bring in the person from. I've heard the minister saying that this time around the management group will be a Ghanaian institution or something like that. I'm wondering who in Ghana or which institution in Ghana will be able to do that. But you bring somebody in, it's almost like giving an experienced driver a very old and rickety car. You know, definitely that driver, regardless of his experience, wouldn't be able to take you to your destination. So I think something has to be done about the management and about the way ECG is run, whether or not management contract and outsourcing of that function to a private entity is a solution. I'm not too sure. If they come in and they don't have, unless they're coming into, and normally management contracts, they don't come in with investment. They just come to manage the operations of the utility. So essentially, they'll be running the existing system, and unless government is going to promise them an improvement in the infrastructure, changing of the overloaded transmission transformers, and all the problems that we know ECG has, all the commercial losses. Tell you what, Roland, the French utility, as I told you earlier, is one of the best in the whole world. They couldn't pick ECG. So it means there must be something very fundamental that we need to address.
So you're saying that a management deficit is not an issue? We have the best managers. So what then is the difficulty?
No, I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't want to comment on the current management of ECG. But if I'm the owner of an institution or an establishment, I have to set performance benchmarks for the people I employ. Shouldn't I be doing that? And then I have to check with them, because you see, ECG has been told to run as a commercial entity since 1999, if my memory serves me right. Because that was the whole rationale behind the changing of the name from Electricity Corporation of Ghana to Electricity Company of Ghana. You see, ECG was supposed to be run along commercial lines. So what it meant was that there had to be some commercial targets that ECG had to meet. But if nobody enforces that, you have one of the best management team with the best of intentions, but it does nothing to measure them by at the end of the year. They are not even challenged to do what they are needed to do. I think in terms of managers and people who can run the utility, there should be enough in this country. But just like any institution, if there are no performance benchmarks and indicators, nobody can deliver, because then everything is okay, because they are not being measured by anything. If you have a utility that tells you that PRC says that their acceptable losses should be 26% and they made 23%, so they did well, then you have a problem, because if you buy power and 26% of what you buy, you cannot account for it, and because somebody sets a target for you or a benchmark for you and says 23% is okay, then obviously you will be running at a loss. So I don't think that the management, we need to look too far to get the manager to come around.
All right, Ishmael, just stay on the line. Let me take contributions from the two of you. I'll start with you, Eric. With all that he said, it means that, well, we also need to be, or we should have been a lot more, perhaps more disciplined and more serious about the outcomes of the management activities of ECG.
Exactly. That's what I mean. I stated earlier that, I mean, why do we have a situation in this country where people are basically made responsible for certain institutions and they are never held liable for their non-performance? You understand my situation? So I think that, I mean, if we've gotten to a juncture whereby we all appreciate the fact that things have to be done differently and that people at ECG should be held liable, they should all have performance contracts, for instance, right? Individual members in charge of functional areas should have KPIs like normal businesses do, right? And then let's hold them to it. So if you're going to have, let's say, quarterly, yearly, short-term, medium-term, long-term targets, and we would consistently have a proper, robust system in place to monitor if these things are actually happening or not, then we would be making some headway. But if we sort of make it business as usual, you sit there, the lights will go off, they'll come back, complain, go to the PRC and say that, oh, we don't have enough money to generate power, let's increase tariffs, right, which is already burdening the ordinary Ghanaian, right? And then we year in, year out, we get the same arguments. Give us more money and we'll be more efficient. And what happens? We give them more money, Ghanaians suffer, right? They pay more tariffs, prices of energies are hiked. It affects every sphere of our economy, yet still ECG cannot deliver.
Well, I think that that lies in, is it Mr. Doe they call him?
Mr. Jacob.
Mr. Jacob, yes. I think that Mr. Jacob, the answer lies in one of the very important statements that he made. He says that it's like giving
an old car or a
rickety car to a driver. A very good
car.
Yeah, but somebody has been responsible for the maintenance of this car.
It is the fact that, one, we are always being told that ECG's equipment are obsolete and that the whole system needs to be revamped. That has not been done to its logical conclusion. So there are inherent systemic problems. So many things that should have been done even before we transited from corporation to company was not done. So we would always find ourselves where we are. That's why he says that if you bring the best, so far as he's concerned, if you brought the best of managers from across the world to come and handle ECG, they will find themselves in where we are. My hope is that, thankfully, with the compacts coming in, government to take the bull by the horns and do whatever it takes, you know, to put ECG in a situation where, when new managers come to handle it, they are going to leave it better, far more efficient than it is. And like my brother said, then from there on, all the benchmarks that needs to be met would have to be stuck to so that we don't retrogress. For now, we cannot just sit here and assume that somebody is coming with a magic one. Everybody must play their part. For instance, state institutions owing ECG, sometimes huge sums of money, they must operate. And they can all operate with the requisite funds that they must make available. So yes, as much as I am for efficiency, I think that we should also, when you cry for the goose, we cry for them.
Okay, now Ishmael, we have to let you go, but in saying that, well, ECG needs to be given performance contract, it means they need to be held a lot more accountable as to what the output should be within a certain time frame, etc. Who ideally should have been cracking the whip or perhaps being the arbiter or the supervisor, so to speak?
Well, the business owner in this case is the government. And the government has employed or has engaged or introduced a regulator with PURC. So PURC is the one that sets the performance benchmark for the utility. Meanwhile, they always are minded by the fact that the utilities are operating within constraints. So whereas they would have preferred to set maybe higher targets as far as losses are concerned, they take that into consideration because otherwise the government, who is the owner of the utility, will have to invest in the utility. So you fix the problem, and then you give it to the person to deliver. If the person doesn't deliver, then you fire the person. It's the government that appoints the CEO of ECG. So if somebody has to be fired, at the end of the year, you are assessed, and if you didn't deliver, you are asked to leave, and you find somebody who will meet those targets. So long as the utilities continue to be owned by the government, the board of the utilities will have to be assessing the management of the utilities according to certain standards, and not just any internally set standards, but sometimes you look at what the PURC is demanding of them and the extent to which they were able to meet it. Because ultimately, when they go back to PURC to negotiate for salaries, they tell them that you didn't meet A, B, C, D, so we're not going to give you the 100 or 200% increment that you are looking for. You see? So it is ultimately the government, but it's also because,
now, if we had no losses as far as distribution of power, we had equipment of ECG, that's the transformers, etc., upgraded or changed, and everything was okay. We had the increment as they would want it. Would everything be okay?
Roland, the biggest question that we all need to find an answer to is, when you have your tariff denominated in cedi and you have most of your inputs in dollars, there's always going to be a shortfall. If I show you the graph of electricity tariff since the inception of PURC in dollar terms, the tariffs are actually going down because the cedi has lost so much value. You see, so sometimes these increases that they get, and I'm a customer, and I'm an NGO, so at least I'm not advocating that prices should go up. But sometimes that's the truth that we are not being told. The truth of the matter is that sometimes the increases are only given to fix the currency shortfall. Okay, there's no margin for them to invest. I mean, they don't expect ECG to be able to make any investment with the tariffs they get, because they are only supposed to cover some costs.
Okay, so you're telling us that all in all, that's not the panacea. I mean, if you have...
What I'm saying, Roland, is that the macroeconomy has to be stable. Otherwise, tariffs will have to be such that if you expect them to run as private entities, then they have to have some investment. They have to charge the consumers some money to be able to save and invest as and when the need arises, and they wouldn't have to keep running to the government for all these compacts and all these World Bank assistance to fix the system.
Don't worry, I call them bailout. They wouldn't have to be running to government for bailout.
Exactly.
All right, thank you very much. Ishmael Ajekunmini is the executive director for KITE. Is an NGO, but also they are consultants in the energy as far as we're concerned. And so it means that macroeconomic stability is also key for the performance of these utility companies. And now we're talking even about VRA, Gridco, and now we come to ECJ. It's a chain on its own.
Yes.
It's as if it's something that will be recurring.
No, well, if we put in the right safeguards, I think that we should be able to improve tremendously our. Like he says, I don't think that even in the US and other places they have 100% efficiency. But like we say, we have a lot more losses. We have a lot more things we need to do to get to at least international best practices, where if we are able to minimize our losses, we are able to minimize, we are able to have a more stable macroeconomic system. Because you see, we operate a mix, generation mix, thermal,
and then crude. Okay, we're talking about crude as well as hydro.
Thermal and hydro. But the good thing is that if we are able to get our gas on stream, at least that improves the situation, because then we don't need to buy as much crude as we used to buy, and that would drive down how much money we need in terms of the dollars that go out. And I think that gradually we should be able to improve and keep improving if we maintain the right fundamentals.
Okay. So again, it boils down to the economy.
I mean, definitely. And I mean, I think that, like Ishmael just said, the buck actually stops with the government. Now, I mean, who's responsible for both the micro and the macroeconomic policies of this country? It's the government, right? Now, if these guys are running at a loss, or essentially the city has depreciated so low that whatever it is that they are inputting into the organization has to sort of always demands more cities to make sure that it actually works. Because, I mean, majority of the stuff that comes in is actually now are quoted in the USD. Now, then it's imperative that our government sits up, fixes the economy, stops the propaganda, tells the people of this country exactly what these so-called homegrown policies even mean to them, so that we can all get a certain buy-in. People buy in to the fact that we are in crisis, right? We have a big problem with the economy. This is what we are doing to fix it.
I'm talking about crisis. You know, we're going for a bailout from the
Exactly. I mean, leading to my point, right? Without skirting around, using semantics, and then instead of actually being open and transparent and say, these are the real issues, right? Stop the propaganda, fix the economy, make sure that you have the right people in place. Doesn't it, I mean, interest you that this government had, if I'm right, 3 reshuffles, and the most integral part of the of governance, which is the economy, has not been touched.
Meaning
when the city has depreciated by 40%.
We have changes in trade and some critical areas.
Right. When the city has depreciated by 40% since the beginning of the year, and you still have a finance minister sitting there who, for me, to the best of my knowledge, is totally bereft of what exactly is happening right now, right? We have a Bank of Ghana, and then we have a governor there who seems to be all over the place. We're not sure exactly what the real policies are, because from day one, we didn't have the confidence that they knew what they were doing. Typical example.
Well, they knew what they were doing, but you feel that...
But it hasn't, has it, in your estimation, has it actually worked? Has it impacted the economy positively? No. Now, some economists, and then I'll go back to Dr. Bawumia, right, predicted this particular predicament 2 years, 3 years ago, when the government was playing politics with our economy. Right, so I think that, like, there's nothing wrong with coming back and saying to the people of this country, we have messed up. This is how we want
That's
to.
politics.
This is how
That's
we want
politics.
you to help
That
us
part about the
solve
messing
it.
up and all in propaganda is politics.
No, it's not.
It's
It's
a
the truth of the
playing
matter.
politics.
Now, let me typical example. The prices of food have gone up. There's a hike in the price of food, electricity, water, transportation. Right, the cedi has depreciated. The average Ghanaian still earns the same amount of money that they have. Government has not employed or hired new people into the public sector close to 4 years, right? So the burden on the ordinary Ghanaian has increased. You understand? So this is not propaganda, it's not politics.
Made your
That's the
point.
truth
IMF.
on the ground.
Wait.
Best decision for us to go.
Wait. Look.
I should
Roland,
relax.
Relax. You see, my brother here, like we said at the beginning, I thought that we would have a more structured and more, more informed discussion. You see, he said so many things that are totally untrue.
That's not true. So the prices of food have gone up.
Please. Which government has come into Ghana and says that for the 4 years term that I stayed, my price of fuel, price of food, nothing
Have been
went up?
stable.
It's never been the case because of the fundamental structure of our economy.
Okay. But
How does
especially
that-
when,
how
Please.
does that
Sir,
make-
sir,
When you were talking, I didn't talk.
when you were
interjecting.
talking, you don't have the right. I have the right to
Yeah, I could have
interject. Okay,
interjected.
so I have the right
Yes,
to. Now
but
let me say
let me
something.
even start from
Since January,
please.
the cedi has depreciated
The cedi has always-
over 30%.
Please, Roland.
And that's
You see,
huge.
Roland, let's not go and play some historical things because once you do
No,
that,
historic,
then
just
we are
last
equalized.
two
No,
quarters.
I'm saying that we are equalized. I don't want to equalize, but you see, let's just put the things in proper perspective. First, it's unfortunate that Ghanaians will come and sit and start talking about their finance minister as clueless and mentioning people who he thinks are inefficient and things like that. That is sad, and I was hoping that you make him retract some of those because it's not fair to Mr. Setekwe. Mr. Setekwe is a very qualified person in his field, and he's doing the best. After all, there are those. Why? So when President Kufuor did the reshuffle and asked Osafo Mafu to go to and brought Barredu, it means that Osafo Mafu was clueless. He didn't know what he was doing. He was an inefficient manager. That is what he wants us to believe. So be it. But you see, the reality on the ground is that you do not coach the team of John Mahama. John Mahama has a 4-year term. He has been given a job to do. Yes, you may talk about the depreciation of the cedi. Roland, tell me, under which government and when the NPP was in power, tell me that the cedi didn't depreciate. Tell me that all the problems that we have, they didn't have it. The only issue is about approach. When they had similar problems, what did they do? They went in and sold Ghana Telecom.
I do understand what you're saying.
Yes, but we
the
have
truth-
decided.
but the
Please,
truth
Roland,
is-
please. They went in there and sold Ghana
But the
Telecom.
truth